Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the fearful avoidant version of the core wound, I am excluded. So this is actually a part of our core wound series. I'm doing a little core wound series right now because core wounds are so important for us to understand, because what a core wound really is, and I'm going to get into this in a lot more detail in just a moment. But what a core wound really is it's something that we tell in terms of the story of ourselves. It's something that we carry at a subconscious level. And you can think of it as being part of the filter we experience the world through. So when we have core wounds, these core I am beliefs of who we are, then they become activated and they can be extremely painful when they do get touched on, because there's sort of these internal pain points that we're carrying over and over again. And we usually give a lot of meaning related to core wounds, and we sort of overlay our core wounds onto our external experiences quite often. So we're going to talk a lot about really what that means in more detail. Quick disclaimer, I know my sound isn't probably 100%. I do have like one of these good microphones down here, but I have a better version and an updated version. I just don't have everything set up today. I haven't recorded videos in a while. I was in the hospital for a few days with an appendix surgery. I made some dietary changes, and I don't think my body was really that happy with them. And I'm like totally good, but I'm just not as organized as I usually am. And I'm just sort of getting back into the swing of things after a week. And I can't believe how much I'm like so excited to make video content. I was like thinking about it all morning and how excited I am. And yeah, it just definitely makes me happy to share with you guys. So anyways, before I dive into this video, I want to sort of put like a little share that maybe I can make a long form video about if you guys want me to, but I really wanted to say one thing. Like in the world right now, and I'm just concerned about this is why I'm saying this, in the world right now, it's really looking, and by the way, if you want to hear a little bit more about the whole like appendix thing, I put a video out yesterday. I'm pre-batching them today with a little more details. It's like about, what did I make the video about? I can't remember, but it was yesterday's video. So before I dive into like this whole topic really quick, it looks like in the world right now, we're about to go back maybe in the next few months or few weeks even to like a little bit more isolation than usual. Obviously, like the fall and winter seasons are coming in like the Western world. And it looks like there might be just more impact again for 2020, kind of ramping back up to like round 2. And 2020 has been a wild year for so many people. And personally, as somebody who works with people and like how these things impact human beings and their mental, emotional well-being, 2020 has been like the breeding grounds for disaster in terms of just like mental, emotional health. And so I just wanted to take a moment as well and ask everybody to like sit down and look at like, okay, if things do become more challenging, and I'm not saying that I know that they will or anything like that, like that could absolutely not be the case, but obviously it's sort of like looking like that to a certain degree right now. And I just want everybody to know that when we experience pain and challenge are opportunities, even just inconvenience, even just like the inconvenience of isolation, of not being able to like hug your family and friends normally, or like see them on a regular basis if we do sort of retract back to more like quarantine type states. Like what I want you to do is prepare mentally, emotionally for what you're going to take away, because pain and challenge are opportunities to know ourselves better. They're opportunities to learn more, to create more wisdom, empathy, connection, and vulnerability in our lives. And it's not, I'm not taking away from like pain and challenge being painful and challenging, but if we have a plan where we're like, okay, I might be isolated, especially for people who are living alone. I might be inconvenienced. There might be a lot of challenges going on right now. I'm not saying that's not extremely hard, but what I want you to do is be like, how will I buffer myself as best as possible? And I think like the more, if somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, for example, like knock on wood, hopefully that's not the case for anybody, but like just in terms of, how, like as an analogy, if somebody gets like a not so great diagnosis, the best thing you can do is take extra good care of yourself and be extra prepared and measured and planned, and just in terms of like how you are going to respond. And so when we're going through more at a collective level, we owe it to ourselves to do even more to support ourselves in the process. And so I want you to ask yourself, if I am in that space, it doesn't mean you can't get needs met for connection. It just means you have to be more creative. You have to be more vulnerable on your phone calls. It means you have to open up more to people around you. You have to connect maybe over like FaceTime or Zoom or, different apps that we have, and maybe share more about yourself, join groups online, whatever it is, like whatever we feel like we're going to be missing. I want you to be like, what are the things that have affected me, especially in that first round of quarantine, that I was missing? And how can I come up with really creative strategies to at least get them met enough where I'm okay in a different form? So if it was connection missing, okay, what are my more creative strategies to come up with ways to get connection met? If it was security missing, okay, what other ways can I create security in different forms? It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to feel like super safe on a daily basis, and feel like, yeah, everything's perfectly fine. But the idea is to get to a space where you're like, okay, well, maybe I can get more security in terms of order and structure and organization and all these different things. So what I want you to do is just take a look, and I don't mean to worry anybody, but just take a look at the things that you're not looking forward to, if there is a chance that those circumstances come again. And ask yourself, how will I choose to empower myself again? What will I take away from this time? And this is an excellent time to be like, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to work on the relationship to myself. Maybe you're going to work on your boundaries. Maybe you're going to work on more vulnerability in your self-expression. Like, pick things and set goals for yourself so that you have something that you're focused on that's for a solution, instead of like, floating and just feeling like you're defenseless against this sort of collective scale problem that's taking place. So what I want you to do, again, is just get really clear about something that is going to create certainty, because you're going to have something that you're going to focus on during a time going back into the fall season, going back into the winter months, these sorts of things. So I might be a little bit early and premature on this, but I'm in Canada, and we're starting to already feel our fall season, and I'm like, fall season is here and I love fall. But I was just thinking about sort of the impact, and I get concerned about people out there and some of the things that people are going through. I know it's been a really tough year for people. So my heart goes out to you guys, and I'm going to do my best at all turns to make a daily video for as long as, this whole crazy 2020 and maybe going into 2021 is happening. And this is a great time to join our school too. Like, if you want extra community support, I do 4 live webinars a week where I answer people's questions. We have an amazing community in there that's so supportive, and that has a chat channel and speaks with one another, and, chats all the time during our live webinars, and like is so supportive of each other. And like Q&A in there and all these really amazing things and support systems. So, it's a great time to join the school as well. And if you're going through financial challenges, you can also email my team at info@personaldevelopmentschool.com. And in there, you can get scholarship options that are available. And also, we have "with you" as the coupon code. It's all one word, and it's for 25% off membership bundles for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And I'll put a link in the description box below, as well as on this channel. So please forgive the long intro. I just wanted to put that extra bit of sort of bonus content in there, because I want you guys to be prepared and organized, and really feel like you can show up for yourselves during this time and have all the tools and support possible. So, okay, let's talk about core wounds. So what are core wounds really? So core wounds are basically these imprints that we get. And I've made other videos on core wounds, like for each attachment style, that are very in depth, that you can check out on this channel. But core wounds are essentially these, when we go through a painful experience, we don't know how to properly process it and make sense of it. Instead, we just give it meaning, and our subconscious stores it, and it stores it with all the emotion attached. And what I've found is that people have these really core I am wounds, like these stories that they have about themselves that they carry, and that really impact their identity, that impact their emotions, their behaviors. And this is what core wounds are. And so core wounds are things like, I am bad, I am alone, I will be abandoned, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, or not deserving, I'm unloved, I am disrespected, I am stupid, which I don't like that word, but it's a big core wound that pops up a lot that people carry. And it can be not smart enough, or it can also be, I am foolish, things like that. I am trapped, I am helpless, I am powerless. We have all these different core wounds. I won't go into every single one of them, but there's like 18 to 22 main ones. So that are like primary or secondary, basically. So we have these core wounds, and basically you can think of like a core wound coming about in the first place as if, let's say, you have a critical mother, let's pretend, and let's say you're John, and you're a child, and you're constantly feeling criticized, and you might just come to believe, because you can't make sense of the experience, like, oh, mom is critical because she's trying to like build me so that I can, take on the world and help support me in dealing with, confrontation and challenges, or she's trying to prepare me as best as possible, or this is her way of communicating. As a child, you can't, like, your prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough yet to be able to like make these logically based assumptions and understand things from perspectives outside of yourself. And so instead, we just personalize information. We make it mean that this is who we are. And so usually if there's a lot of criticism, for example, in a parent, you're just going to have a core wound that says, I'm not good enough, or even in a sibling or a teacher or somebody who plays a prominent role in your life. If you have painful events where your needs are not met, you might make that mean I am unsafe, or I am unloved, or something's wrong with me, and that's why my needs aren't getting met. And so we have all these different really painful core wounds. And how they impact us is that because they sort of they start to create this landscape within us at the subconscious level. Our subconscious mind is constantly projecting them back out onto our external experiences. So if you have a core wound that says, I'm not good enough, this is part of your identity. This is part of what you believe about yourself. And so then when you go into a job interview, when you go into, a new relationship, you're probably going to be like overcompensating or self-defeating or really negative in your internal dialogue. And so this core wound tends to create these like cycles of the belief is the core wound, which then creates a whole bunch of thoughts. So if you believe I'm not good enough, you're going to think like I'm not interesting enough, funny enough, cool enough, like whatever it is, extensions of the I am not enough. And then you're going to feel certain ways about yourself, like defeated, stressed, anxious, sad, right? Hopeless. And then you're going to have behaviors that are ways that you've developed to try to manage having that wound inside of you. So you're going to have these behaviors that are like, maybe you're constantly overcompensating. Maybe you're like super competitive and you're always trying to prove everybody wrong. Maybe you are really like, you feel like there's no point in doing anything. So you try to, flee or have like these avoidant tendencies. Instead of going towards the job interview or towards the challenge, you shy away a lot. Maybe you have these places in relationships you're constantly overcompensating, or you don't even bother trying to be in a relationship because you think nobody will want to be with you because you're not good enough. So we have all these different behaviors, and it's so extremely important that you learn to identify your own. Because when we understand our own patterns, that's how we can start reprogramming them. And I have like the most in-depth course inside of the school, and it's our emotional mastery and belief reprogramming course, which gets you to like identify your entire subconscious paradigm with like a 20-page workbook, and you don't have to go through like all 20 pages, but you can select the exercises that you feel like, wow, this is going to just be a game changer, and it helps you reprogram layer by layer exactly the core wounds that you have in a tremendous amount of detail. And so when we have these core wounds, they are impacting us all the time on a regular basis. And remember, these things are lodged in our subconscious. And so, our conscious mind is responsible for roughly 3 to 5% of our lives, while our subconscious is responsible for roughly 95 to 97%. And so when we aren't in charge of that internal subconscious landscape, all these challenges erupt as a result. So, let's talk about specific to the fearful avoidant. Well, the fearful avoidant version of this core wound, I am excluded, which is more of a secondary core wound for fearful avoidance, where it's primary for anxious preoccupied. And if you're interested, I have a more in-depth I am excluded video from the anxious preoccupied attachment style that I put out a few days ago. So if you're like looking at this and you're going, okay, this is definitely something I experience. Fearful avoidants experience it similarly to anxious preoccupied. They definitely experience it less frequently, but to a similar intensity. And the experience of it is like, the heat in the chest, the knots in the stomach, the sort of pain and sensations in the upper torso and shoulders, the burning sort of sensation for people. That's usually like the visceral somatic experience. But they experience it differently in how they respond to it. Okay. So like their behaviors in that loop I was talking about, belief to thought to emotion to action or behavior, that loop is experienced differently, because usually when anxious, preoccupied individuals experience it, it still gives them approach-oriented strategies towards making relationships work, wanting to move towards relationships, feeling better about relationships, wanting to fix something or address something, or just wanting closeness and fearing abandonment even more, versus the fearful avoidant. Their experience is usually to feel really shut down, angry, hurt, upset, and want to push people away. So they go away from, they avoid, whereas anxious, preoccupied tend to approach. And so usually this is because there was some kind of like exclusion core wound or experience that happens with friends, family members, whatever it might be in childhood. And because there's a need for both fearful avoidance and anxious, preoccupied to connect in order to feel safe, this is part of where that sort of pain point comes from. So the fearful avoidance natural tendency tends to be to push away, to withdraw, to sometimes even be like spiteful, passive aggressive, things like that, and to convince yourself that, oh, I don't need so-and-so. I don't need people in a relationship around me, and to really try to like create that space in order to feel in control of your own emotions and experiences. But then usually what ends up happening is later the fearful avoidant regrets it, or they feel like a little bit lonely, or sometimes they can just really withdraw into themselves at the expense of having like really rewarding and fulfilling friendships or other relationships. And so something that's really important to do in order to work and reprogram this is to identify where you feel it and the specific root causes that tend to bring it up. Like, what are the patterns that you notice in terms of what brings it up? And then what you want to do every day for 21 days is you want to look for reasons that you are included and why you deserve to be included, and you want to feel about them, because repetitive thought and feeling, and especially new action, reprograms that original cycle. And when we reprogram, we stop reprojecting that old wound out. And what's really interesting is that when we're not coming from a place of this core wound being activated, we have better actions and behaviors that naturally come about because we're thinking from our prefrontal cortex in terms of how we want to deal with these things. So for example, if you're triggered and you feel excluded, you might be like, I need to push people away. My friend didn't invite me out with all my other friends. I need to push people away. But if you are in a space where you're like, whoa, I'm noticing this exclusion. This is this core wound I'm carrying, but you've done the work to get rid of some of that intense emotion that comes up, especially at the body level. We've got an amazing course coming out in like deep emotional processing at the somatic level this month, and how to get rid of like those intense trigger visceral feelings at the body level. But if you have these like experiences that come up, instead of going, oh, I'm going to push away, or I'm going to become super anxious and really try to attach and maybe overwhelm people, or instead of having these like not best version of yourself responses because they're coming from a triggered space, the best thing that you can do is be like, okay, I've got rid of lots of that emotion. I notice there's a little bit of a feeling of exclusion that's based on the circumstance. How do I want to respond? Maybe I want to call my friend and say, hey, I noticed that, you didn't ask me to do this thing, next weekend. And I would love to join you. And maybe you just ask in a healthy way, or maybe you do your best to include yourself in other versions of different things. But part of what heals this is being able to meet your own needs first, because then we don't feel so triggered when people retract the promise of being able to meet our own needs. So that's a huge component for repatterning, and doing that repetitively enough that you feel safe and that you can rely on yourself to do so. Reprogramming the story you have by looking for where you are included and you are worthy of inclusion, and then having a healthy conscious action step that you can take to create inclusion if there are circumstances where you feel excluded. A lot of times people don't mean to exclude other people. And, I've had so many conversations with so many clients and people over the years, and like a lot of mistakes in relationships are quite innocent. They're just overlooked, or somebody thought that you wouldn't want to be there, or, different things like that. So So, if you can ask for inclusion as well in a healthy manner, but it doesn't do well when we ask from a triggered space. It does well when we ask from a regulated space. And so you have to do that internal work first to be able to get to that point. So that's just a little bit on this. Another course we're going to have coming out soon is a deep course around how to meet your own needs, understanding your needs, and reprogramming deep core wound patterns and understanding like all the nuances of the core wounds themselves, where there will be a lot of detail into these things. So stay tuned for that. And that's everything for now. So thank you so much for watching and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot out of this channel, and I will see you in the next video.